Hey y'all, and welcome back to our Bible study series. So today we are going to study 2 Chronicles 25. And I want to get right to it because this is a intense chapter that I have a lot of notes on. So let's get right to it, okay? 2 Chronicles 25 verse 1. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoaddan. She was from Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but not wholeheartedly. After the kingdom was firmly in his control, he executed the officials who had murdered his father, the king. Yet he did not put their children to death, but acted in accordance with what is written in the law of the book of Moses, where the Lord commanded, "Parents shall not be put to death for their children, nor children be put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin." Amaziah called the people of Judah together and assigned each according to their families to commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds for all Judah and Benjamin. He then mustered those 20-year-olds or more and found that there were 300,000 men fit for military service, able to handle the spear and shield. He also hired 100,000 fighting men from Israel for 100 talents of silver. But a man of God came to him and said, "Your Majesty, these troops from Israel must not march with you, for the Lord is not with Israel, not with any of the people of Ephraim. Even if you go and fight courageously in battle, God will overthrow you before the enemy, for God has the power to help or to overthrow." Amaziah asked the man of God, "But what about the 100 talents I paid for these Israelite troops?" The man of God replied, "The Lord can give you much more than that." So Amaziah dismissed the troops who had come to him from Ephraim and sent them home. They were furious with Judah and left for home in great rage. Amaziah then marshaled his strength and led his army to the Valley of Salt, where he killed 10,000 men of Seir. The army of Judah also captured 10,000 men alive. They took them to the top of a cliff and threw them down so that all were dashed to pieces. Verse 13. Meanwhile, the troops that Amaziah had sent back and had not allowed to take part in the war raided towns belonging to Judah from Samaria to Beth Horon. They killed 3,000 people and carried off great quantities of plunder. When Amaziah returned from slaughtering the Edomites, he brought back the gods of the people of Seir. He set them up as his own gods, bowed down to them, and burned sacrifices to them. The anger of the Lord burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him who said, "Why do you consult this people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand?" While he was still speaking, the king said to him, "Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop! Why be struck down?" So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that God has determined to destroy you, because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel." After Amaziah, king of Judah, consulted his advisors, he sent this challenge to Joash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel. "Come, let us face each other in battle." But Joash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, "A thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon. Give your daughter to my son in marriage." Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle underfoot. "You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall and that of Judah also?" Amaziah, however, would not listen, for God so worked that he might deliver them into the hands of Joash, because they sought the gods of Edom. So Joash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, and every man fled to his home. Jehoash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then Jehoash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section about 400 cubits. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of God that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and the hostages, and returned to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. As for the other events of Amaziah's reign from beginning to end, are they not written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? For the time that Amaziah turned away from following the Lord, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and was buried with his ancestors in the city of Judah. This is like a soap opera, y'all. I'm just saying. It's crazy. So let me get to my Bible study notes. All right. I've labeled this one, "Doing the Right Thing May Be Hard, but It's Still Right." Okay, so here we have King Amaziah. He took over after his dad Joash was murdered by his officials for killing Zechariah. Remember that from last week? Now, the Edomites had their eyes set on Judah. So King Amaziah needed to raise an army. He enlisted 300,000 men, but he didn't think that was enough. That sounds like a lot to me, and I don't know about y'all, and maybe the Edomite army, I have no idea, but maybe they had a 1,000,000-man army. I don't know. So maybe that's the reason why Amaziah thought that his army was tiny compared to them, and he needed to beat the Edomites. Those are just my thoughts. All right. But money will buy you anything, right? Nope. So he bought himself an army. Who does this kind of thing, y'all? Apparently Amaziah did. Remember, now, the North Country is still a separate country, and they worship idols. King Amaziah just bought an army of idol worshipers. That's not going to go well at all. And then in comes this new seer or prophet. He tells Amaziah that God said if he uses this army from the North Country, that he, God, will not be with him in battle. I am so glad that Amaziah took this seer or prophet seriously and sent that army from the north home. So, Amaziah goes and they defeat the Edomites. But here's the problem. They brought the Edomites' idols back to Judah to worship them. I mean, come on now. But y'all, we do this same thing. We know what's not right in the eyes of God, yet we do wrong every day. Because we're thinking, well, this is just a little thing. It can't be that bad. So here are 7 different things that we can do to get our hearts right with the Lord. And I'm learning this myself as well as telling you guys at the same time. Number 1, do what is right even when you feel you have been wronged. I can just drop the mic right there and be done with the whole lesson. I mean, think about it. In this lesson here, King Amaziah, his dad was murdered. Yet here he is worshiping God at the beginning of the chapter anyway. He did what was right even when his family had been wronged. Number 2, do what is right even when you don't feel appreciated. Yeah, King Amaziah killed the officials that murdered his dad, but he didn't go any further. As king, he could have killed the whole family. I mean, just think about the evil Queen Mother from a few chapters ago where she just wiped out, or thought she had, wiped out the whole lineage of David. King Amaziah could have done the same thing and killed the whole family of the ones that murdered his dad. And one of my classmates this morning in Sunday school said that what Amaziah did by stopping and not killing the whole family was not the norm back then. Because back then, what you wanted to do is you wanted to kill the whole family so that none of their offspring could come back and kill King Amaziah for revenge. I thought that was a very good point, so I wanted to share that with y'all. Okay, so number 3, do what is right even when it doesn't make any sense. Bigger is not always better, right? Amaziah followed what the prophet told him, even though that made his army small compared to the Edomites. When I think about this, I think about Gideon here. He had this huge army, yet God made him whittle it down until he just had 300 men, and they destroyed the Philistines. The whole Philistine army, remember that? All right, number 4. Do what is right, even when it requires sacrifice. Amaziah lost his 100 shekels of silver. I'm going to guess that that's about $8,000 in today's prices. It could be more. This is just a guess on my part. $8,000 is a lot of money, no matter how you slice it. I bet it hurt when he had to turn them away. Because he even asked, well, what about my money? I already paid for them. God didn't care. But I love what the prophet said, but God can give you even more. And he will, y'all. He will. Number 5, do what is right, even when it is not politically correct. After his victory over the Edomites, Amaziah could have just went home. The Edomites would have probably built themselves back and came after Judah. But Amaziah finished the job by marching the Edomites to a cliff and making them jump to their death. What a terrible death. But it had to be done to completely destroy the Edomites. And this was not a common practice. So it was definitely politically incorrect. I mean, we were talking previously that you would kill a whole family, but this is a whole nation. but it had to be done. I'm reminded, my husband corrected me today, and I'm still going to tell y'all my version of it because, anyway, you'll see. I'm reminded of that scene in Quigley Down Under when the men were forcing the Aborigines ladies to jump and babies to jump off the cliff. If you've ever watched that movie, you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't ever watched the movie, you won't know what I'm talking about. And then Quigley quickly pulls out his famous rifle and takes care of the men that are forcing the women to jump off the cliff to their death. That's what whenever I read that in the Bible, that's what it reminded me of. And this could have happened to Amaziah. God could have easily killed Amaziah for taking the Edomite people and making them jump off the cliff. But this was in God's plan. This was part of, nothing was done to Amaziah for doing this. It had to be done. These people were coming against God's people, so they had to be taken care of. Number 6, do right and give God praise for the victory. This is where Amaziah failed. Instead of giving God the praise, he brought back the false gods with a little g and started worshiping them. I would just love to know why in the world he did this. Why, Amaziah? Why? Something happened in that battle. He was doing right, even though he wasn't wholeheartedly worshiping the Lord. He was worshiping the Lord and following the Lord's guidance, and then something happened and he brought these idols back. I don't get it. Number 7, do the right thing even when it seems there is no battle to be fought. I don't know. Maybe Amaziah thought the battles were over and he didn't need God anymore. Y'all, you always need God, even in the good and easy times. All right, so those were our 7 lessons to be learned for the first part of the chapter. Now, we come to the second half of the chapter. Let's read verses 15 and 16. It says, "The anger of the Lord burned against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him, who said, 'Why do you consult these people's gods, which could not save their own people from your hand?' While he was still speaking, the king said to him, 'Have we appointed you an advisor to the king? Stop. Why be struck down?'" Because if this man was speaking out of turn, he could have been killed. So the prophet stopped, but said, "I know that God has determined to destroy you because you have done this and have not listened to my counsel." I love this prophet dude. He got his message in, even after he was told to shut up. I mean, seriously, he's brave. Y'all, you never know when God is going to send you a message, and you never know whom God will choose as that deliverer. So we must listen and ponder each word people speak to us. Now, I know there are some people out there that are just out to destroy us, but God has messengers even today. We may not call them prophets, but he uses people to give messages to his people. I'm in no way, shape, or form calling myself a prophet. Nope, no way. But God puts these words in my head, and I speak them to you every week. Look, I just gave you 7 ways to do the right thing in life. Ponder on those words this week. Search your heart. Live the words out loud. I have messengers in my life that I listen to and ponder and search and live through the words they give me. It's how we grow, y'all. Now, let's move on to verse 17. It says, "After Amaziah, king of Judah, consulted his advisors, he sent this challenge to Joash, son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel. Come, let us face each other in battle." I guess Amaziah felt cocky from his big win. I'm sorry, but what a stupid guy. He builds an army. He hires an additional army. God tells him, you don't need those extra guys. He sends the additional men back home to Israel that he's just called out. He goes into battle. He wins the battle, thanks to God. He's now challenging the very people he tried to hire to fight with him. And why? But in the meantime, he's turned his back on God, and a prophet has told him that God is mad at him and will destroy him. So why ask for a battle? He has lost his ever-loving mind, y'all. Whatever he's smoking has messed his mind up. I'm just saying. He should just sit on his throne and mind his own business and live out his life. But he doesn't. At this point, the king of Israel has more sense than Amaziah, the king of Judah. I'm just saying. It says, "But Joash, king of Israel, replied to Amaziah, king of Judah, a thistle in Lebanon sent a message to a cedar in Lebanon. Give your daughter to my son in marriage. Then a wild beast in Lebanon came along and trampled the thistle. You say to yourself that you have defeated Edom, and now you are arrogant and proud. But stay at home. Why ask for trouble and cause your own downfall and that of Judah also?" That's what the king of Israel that worships idols said to the king of Judah that is supposed to worship God. Like I said, the king of Israel had more sense than the king of Judah at this point. Verses 20 through 24. Let's read those. "Amaziah, however, would not listen, for God so worked that he might deliver them into the hands of Joash, because they sought the gods of Edom," little g gods. So Joash, king of Israel, attacked. He and Amaziah, king of Judah, faced each other at Beth-shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by Israel, meaning they were defeated, and every man fled to his home. Joash, king of Israel, captured Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, at Beth-shemesh. Then Joash brought him to Jerusalem and broke down the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a section of about 400 cubits long. He took all the gold and silver and all the articles found in the temple of God that had been in the care of Obed-Edom, together with the palace treasures and the hostages, and returned to Samaria. So look at that. Amaziah would not listen. So what else was Joash to do but attack? And Joash captured Amaziah and brought him back to Jerusalem, where they plundered the temple, y'all. I got nothing. What an idiot. That's all I can say. Now, we're going to go to verse 25. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, lived for 15 years after the death of Joash, son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. verses 27 and 28. From the time that Amaziah turned away from following the Lord, they conspired against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent men after him to Lachish and killed him there. He was brought back by horse and buried with his ancestors in the city of Judah. All he had to do was worship God and God alone, and none of this other stuff would have happened. But he didn't. For some unknown reason, he chose to worship other gods with a little g. And this caused God, with a big G, to get angry and turn his back on him. And because of his actions, he ran like a scared little girl from the palace. But they went after him, y'all, and killed him in Lachish. They could have left him there. They could have, but they didn't. They brought him back by horse and buried him with his ancestors. That was a nice thing for these people because of everything that Joash had put them through with turning his back on God. This was a nice thing for them to do. So here's my thoughts on this. I know that God promised a descendant of David would be on this throne forever. But y'all, you know, people in Judah were like, can we please get a new crew in here that will rule over us? These guys are killing us by turning from God all the time. Let's just get somebody new in here. But that's not in God's plan. God's plan was to have a descendant of David on the throne forever. So, those were just my ending thoughts on that, because this is getting, how long have we been studying 2nd Chronicles? It seems like forever, and it's just getting worse and worse that these kings turned their backs on God. So, now, we're going to have another king next chapter, or next week. So, y'all come back and let's see if this king is a good king, or if we have another bad king. All right? Hopefully it's a good king. I'm tired of these bad kings. So y'all stick with me and come back and see me next week. All right, thanks. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Bible. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.